Former Impact Wrestling Knockouts Tag Team Champion officially departs the company, plus a current WWE superstar and former Impact World Champion possibly walking through the forbidden door to work in Impact Wrestling once more. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. Having a good Friday. As always, there is plenty of news stories to get into today. We haven't done an Impact Wrestling News video in a while, so there's so much to talk about in the world of Impact Wrestling. Of course, we've got No Surrender coming up soon. We've got people coming into the company, leaving the company, matches, all this kind of stuff. There's so much to talk about. We're going to start off talking about another talent leaving Impact Wrestling. Now, of course, at the moment, there's so many free agents on the market, and to make space for these free agents to come in, you've got to have some exits, and we know the situation when it comes to Impact Wrestling contracts, lack thereof, so there's always a bit of an influx of talent going in and out of the door in Impact Wrestling, and the latest name to depart the company is none other than former Knockouts Tag Team Champion Rachel Ellering. Another name is done with Impact Wrestling in Rachel Ellering. This is being reported by Fightful Select, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com. Now, Ellering has effectively finished with Impact Wrestling after coming to work with the company in April of 2021. You remember she had made her debut around the time of Impact Rebellion last year. However, Fightful are reporting that this has been the case for well over a month, and that it became clear by the first week of January that she would likely not be back at the upcoming television tapings. Now, if you recall, Rachel Ellering was replaced by Alicia Edwards in the Hard to Kill Ultimate X match, and was not at the series of tapings subsequently. They've also confirmed that since then, Fightful, that she's not been at any subsequent television tapings and is no longer factored into any creative plans moving forward. Several talents in the company have also told Fightful that Ellering was no longer working there. So it was a bit of a surprising one, to be honest with you, because she was really heavily featured on Impact Wrestling television over the course of the last year, right? They were the team second ever Knockouts Tag Team Champions. There was this whole big thing of Jordynne Grace getting a tag team partner. She teamed up with Jazz for a little bit, and then she teamed up with Rachel Ellering, brought it in, won the Knockouts Tag Team Championships from Fire and Flavor, and then they had the whole storyline where eventually they lost the Tag Team Championships, and then Rachel Ellering and Jordynne Grace were going at each other, and Jazz was their manager, and all this kind of stuff. It was a big storyline last year, and if you've been watching Impact Wrestling over the course of the last 12 months, you'll know that Rachel Ellering and Jordynne Grace and Jazz, that team, was a really featured and prominent part of the program. So the fact that less than 12 months later, after making her debut, she's already gone from the company, that is surprising. That's very surprising. Now, we don't really at this time have a ton more details as to why or the how of the situation. We just know that she's not working anymore with the company. It was kind of curious that she was replaced for that Ultimate X match at Hard to Kill, and she hasn't come back. Now, I'm not really one to speculate too much. I don't think that's right, and unless we've got all the facts, it's not fair to speculate and assume things and make things up and what have you. So I'm not going to do that. I think what I'll leave it on is that it is curious that she was booked for that show, she's been unbooked for that show, and now she's not coming back. Now, there was this weird rumor regarding her departure from the company about like a birthday tweet or something like that. I've seen Sean Ross Sapp just completely dispute that and say he doesn't have a clue what they're on about. So any reports of, maybe that's a tweet being the reason for her departure, it doesn't seem to be accurate. I'm not saying that nothing has happened backstage when it comes to her departure from the company. Again, it's odd, especially considering that, again, even if she'd signed a 1-year deal or something like that, she would be going until April, not April until January. Most contracts don't tend to last, 9 months or so? That seems very odd. So I don't really have the full answers as to why she's left the company or the reasons behind it. I'm sure, as with the case of any story in the world of pro wrestling and just life, to be honest with you, that we'll get more details about this as we move forward. But again, it's surprising. I thought her work was okay. I thought her promos were probably better than her in-ring work. Of course, she's got pro wrestling in the blood, daughter of Paul Ellering, so that's always works in her favor. She was previously part of NXT. I enjoyed her stuff when we saw her briefly in NXT. I thought it was a good pickup by Impact Wrestling, again, considering the heritage and considering her background. I did feel in some of the matches she worked with Jordynne Grace, if I'm going to be completely transparent, last year, that I thought that she was still somewhat green and some parts of the match were still a little bit iffy. Like I said, I enjoyed her her promos maybe more than her matches, and I did feel like, as with always the case of anyone that has a pro wrestling family, that there's always something ingrained that they can pick up quicker. I don't know if we totally saw that, but I am somewhat surprised to see her go. Again, once we get more information about this, once we hear more details about her departure from Impact Wrestling, we'll talk about it. Jordynne Grace, of course, is heavily factored into the company. She's one of the top knockouts in the company, no doubt about it. The knockouts division in Impact Wrestling is still incredibly strong, despite the people that go in and out of the company. One of Impact Wrestling's real strong points over the course of the last few years is the ability to develop new stars, bring in new people when other people left. I don't think they're naive enough in Impact Wrestling to think that people are going to stay with the company forever. Certainly to some people, it's always going to be a stepping stone to go to WWE, to AEW. Whether or not those people succeed in those respective companies or they come back is another question. But Impact Wrestling, arguably, the Knockouts division is the strongest it's been in a really long time, and I think it's going to get even stronger. I expect people like Taya Valkyrie to come back to the company. We've still got your Deonna Purrazzo's, we've got Mickie James, we've got Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace is currently working a program with Matt Cardona, which is fascinating as well. So when it comes to Rachel Ellering, like I mentioned, Jordynne Grace has been focused on other things as well recently. So it'll be interesting to see if we get any more information about it. But as of right now, all that we know is that Jordynne Grace has officially left Impact Wrestling. And a shout out to a couple of guys in the comments recently who actually did point this out before the story did break, that her profile had been removed from the Impact Wrestling website, which most of the time means that they're gone from the company. So we might hear some more stories about other people departing the company soon. I do want to talk about this because this is a great story. AJ Styles, arguably one of the most famous and greatest stars in Impact Wrestling history, one of the TNA originals back in the day, first ever TNA X Division champion, multiple time Impact World Champion, NWA World Heavyweight, won everything there is to win. Basically, those early days, those fabled early days of TNA wrestling, whilst they had a lot of Jeff Jarrett, they had a lot of AJ Styles, and some of the greatest moments in Impact Wrestling history surround AJ Styles. In fact, he was the first guy, I think, to be signed to a TNA contract by Jeff Jarrett. The guy is ingrained with Impact Wrestling, despite how things ended with his run there in, 2013, 2014, whenever it was. He still is considered to be one of the greatest stars in Impact Wrestling history, no doubt about it. Now, AJ Styles, of course, now is a WWE superstar, former WWE champion, currently working on the Raw brand, WWE Grand Slam champion, but he is open to the prospect of appearing once again on Impact Wrestling. Now, the Forbidden Door is this term that some people roll their eyes at now, but it's a term used when pro wrestlers that are currently signed to one company feature in a rival promotion. And that Forbidden Door was somewhat opened by WWE for the first time in recent years at this past year's Royal Rumble event, in which Knockouts champion Mickie James featured in the Women's Royal Rumble match. Now, in a recent interview with BT Sports' Ariel Helwani, Styles proclaimed it would be good to see Impact Wrestling and WWE collaborate. This is what he had to say, quotes, "I would love to see it. I think it's a good thing. I'm afraid the door only opens one way. There is a lot of library of AJ Styles, Bobby Lashley, and some other guys and girls. It wouldn't be a bad thing," Styles said. Styles continued and stated he wouldn't mind appearing on Impact Wrestling. He said, quote, "Maybe, I wouldn't mind it," the former world champion said. So AJ Styles not ruling out possibly appearing in Impact Wrestling in the future. Whether or not it will happen, I wouldn't hold my breath. I mean, I saw a lot of people, myself included, we covered it extensively here on the channel, were of course very excited to see Mickie James coming out to her Impact Wrestling theme, holding the Impact Knockouts Championship when she was in the Royal Rumble. It did feel somewhat like a watershed moment and a landmark moment, considering WWE doesn't play well with others. They have collaborated with other people in the past, but it's on their terms and they have strict rules. Come to find out that even despite this Impact Wrestling star appearing at the Rumble, holding the Knockouts Championship, coming out to her Impact Wrestling theme, the commentator still couldn't say Impact Wrestling. They had to phrase things certain ways, and it was just very odd, and they couldn't say Knockouts. It was Impact Women's World Championship. It was lots of stuff like that, which was just bizarre, and WWE's always going to be like that. The reason why they're always going to be like that is because that's Vince McMahon's mentality when it comes to collaborating with other promotions. It's not a case of, can we do something special? It's a case of, what can you do for us? In the case of the Women's Royal Rumble, it was, we need Mickie James. We want to have some star power. We want to have a legend in the Rumble, so we'll have Mickie James. AJ Styles appearing once again in an Impact Wrestling ring. For me, it would have to be a situation where WWE would really want something from Impact. They would really want something or someone from Impact Wrestling, so much so that they would be willing to cut a deal whereby AJ Styles could appear in one match. Now, who knows what could happen in the future? A lot can change in the future. Look at what's been happening recently in pro wrestling. Right? So many things that we thought could never happen. So I'm not ruling it out for like a retirement tour when it comes to AJ Styles when he decides to retire in WWE, because that's what he's going to do. He's going to finish his career in that company. If he said to Vince McMahon, or he said to those powers that be in WWE, look, obviously, I've got a history of Impact Wrestling. Obviously, some of my greatest and best moments and best matches in my career are in Impact Wrestling. Before I have my final match, I would like it if I could have one match inside of an Impact Wrestling ring again. And I wish that it wasn't just an Impact Wrestling ring, but it was a 6-sided Impact Wrestling ring. Whether or not we'll get that back again, I highly doubt it, to be honest with you. But I don't know. Again, I feel it's very unlikely, but at this point, when it comes to pro wrestling, really, who knows what could happen? Cody Rhodes is going back to WWE. CM Punk's back pro wrestling in pro wrestling and wrestling every week on television. Nothing is impossible anymore. Like the goalposts have shifted so many times as to what is and isn't possible. The never say never thing is such a cliche, but it's so true at this point when it comes to pro wrestling. Never. You never say never at all. Cody Rhodes is going to be at WrestleMania this year. He was an AEW EVP last year. That's how nuts the world of pro wrestling is. So despite, at the moment, you would say AJ Styles, wrestling in an Impact Wrestling ring, that's never happening again. Who knows? Honestly, who knows? Finally, there's a bit of an update when it comes to an upcoming pay-per-view for Impact Wrestling, that being Impact Under Siege, which actually was a really good event last year. I really enjoyed Impact Under Siege. We did a watch-along here on the channel and actually really enjoyed it. But Impact Wrestling is back on a much more regular filming schedule now. They tape every couple of weeks, don't they? As opposed to once a month. They're at least twice a month, or possibly even more than that. And they've got several upcoming dates set. Among those include New Orleans this coming weekend, Louisville for Sacrifice, Philadelphia in March, we've got Dallas in April, and Poughkeepsie in April as well. Now, Fightful Select, once again, are reporting that the company is planning to run the Cincinnati area for May, specifically for May 7 and 8. Now, Impact Wrestling plans on running Saturday to air the live Under Siege pay-per-view, then television tapings the following day. Based on what the report says by Fightful, Impact plans to run across the river in northern Kentucky for the shows also. So Under Siege is coming to Cincinnati. I think that the current taping schedule has been somewhat refreshing, certainly. I think they've needed to. I think that we've spoken about this several times when it comes to the spoilers, coming out of the pandemic, coming out of the era whereby nobody knew what was going on. It's actually funny because I saw a clip of one of the shows. It was this like compilation of some of the title changes in 2021 in Impact Wrestling, and you go back and you watch some of those moments from the 2021 or 2020 into 2021, the pandemic era of Impact without the crowd, and it's just it's jarring. It's amazing how quickly you adjust, because I remember at the time when obviously empty arenas was terrible, but you did somewhat adjust to it, and then once the fans were back, we're now back to adjusting to having fans there, and you see those empty arena shows again, you're like, wow, they are bad. like the content itself was good, but it's jarring, it's different, and it's funny because those shows were some of the best and highest rated, most viewed shows that Impact Wrestling have done since they moved to Access TV in, 2017 or whenever it was. So that's fascinating. And now, because of being back on the road and having fans mean spoilers, some of the viewership's gone down somewhat. And I think that, there are certain things that overcome it. We've spoken about going live before, which doesn't look like they're going to do. But what they can do, and I suppose this is what they are doing now, is okay, what we can do, we're not going to go live, but what we can do is run more often. So maybe we run, as opposed to once a month, we run twice a month, every 2 weeks. Keep those spoilers somewhat fresh, because we were getting into a situation, weren't we, over the course of points last year, where an episode of television would be airing, and you're like, this was taped like 5 or 6 weeks ago, and everyone knows exactly what's going on. And not even that, even if they don't really care anymore, because the buzz is well and truly worn off, because so much can happen in 5 or 6 weeks in pro wrestling. So they have to keep that schedule a lot quicker, and I think that's what they're trying to do this year. So Impact Under Siege is going to be in Cincinnati, and who knows what Impact Wrestling will look like at that point, right? Certainly it's going to be very interesting nevertheless. But look, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button, be sure to subscribe. Bottom right hand corner, really big weekend coming up. Of course, tomorrow we've got Elimination Chamber. We'll be doing a live watch along and post show for that. It's SmackDown tonight too. We've also got No Surrender coming up as well, so there's plenty of stuff going on. As I mentioned, be sure to smash a like on the like button, be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.